Why did Harry miss his best pal's wedding? Are the royal family skipping class? And is Catherine more powerful than we thought? We'll answer all that and a lot more on Palace Confidential. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and as long as those royals keep generating the headlines, we'll keep discussing them. And here to do just that is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English and the paper's diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome to you both. And this week we received something very special. It's our plaque for getting more than 100,000 subscribers to our Daily Mail Royals channel. Thank you so much if you have subscribed, and if you haven't already joined them, do it now and never miss another episode of Palace Confidential. And a reminder that if you like what we're wearing, you can find out where we got it in the box below. We've also got a great montage this week, so make sure you stick around for that. Rebecca, hello. We got the green memo, I see.
I was just say, we are definitely coordinating
We
as a
are.
vibe today. Richard.
I should have worn a green shirt, really, shouldn't I?
You know, you got to join the hive mind, man. But Rebecca, let's kick off, because we've had another coronation this week. They're like buses. We've only just had one, but the king was getting crowned again.
Let me just stop you there. It was not a coronation. I repeat, it was not a coronation.
Don't kill our buzz, Rebecca English.
In fact, it really wasn't a coronation, and Buckingham Palace were very clear to make it wasn't a clear.
Well, they were still wearing all the same funny outfits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a service of thanksgiving and dedication in Scotland. So every week, the monarch, every year, I should say, in the summer, the monarch goes up to Edinburgh for Scottish Week, and they do a number of engagements in the region. They stay at Holyrood, which is their official residence there. And so to mark the first Scottish Week of the King's reign, the Scottish Government decided to hold this big service. I mean, it was in St Giles Cathedral. There was still a crown, you're right. There was still a sceptre. There was still a sword.
Yeah, I think you're the one who's being pedantic. It's a coronation.
He touched the crown rather than put it on, not least because it's a very, very old crown, one of the oldest surviving crown jewels, I think, in existence. So it's actually too small to put on a modern day monarch's
a big
head.
21st century head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there were all still the elements, hundreds and, thousands of well-wishers out there. So it was a coronation in all but name, let's say.
How much is the crown worth? Is it one of those things that we call priceless? Price
I
upon
think
application.
Well, because, sorry to be a bit of a kind of bore here, but obviously all the British crown jewels are slightly, I say, more modern. We're talking about the kind of 17th century because they were melted down by Oliver Cromwell, but this actually survives from earlier in that period between the kind of 15th and 16th centuries. So it genuinely is incredibly historic.
That's fascinating. And Richard, it was also a chance for the so-called new Fab Four to be out as a team.
Yeah, this is the Fab Four of the King, Camilla, Prince and Princess of Wales. They were all there, of course, and looking fantastic. We had King Charles, Camilla and Prince William were wearing the green robes of the Order of the Thistle, but then Catherine wasn't. She was in regular kind of outfit because she still hasn't been made a member of this order, which...
Why haven't they sorted that out?
I don't know. Come on, it's about time she was made a Lady of the Order of the Thistle, so she could have also worn the robes.
Or do you think Scotland is still making up their mind about Princess Catherine?
I think it is up to King Charles, but anyway, it all needs to be done. But it was good to see them together. I think when Queen Elizabeth was still alive, there was an expectation that there'd be quite a lot of events where we would see William and Catherine with Charles and Camilla. Sort of the impression they're the future. They were the Fab Four still to come type of thing. I think now that Charles is on the throne, maybe we won't see it so often. Actually, there aren't that many engagements that all four of them go together. So it's great to see them there at St Giles Cathedral.
Well, the first Royal Fab Four, that didn't turn out so well. So let's hope it's not a jinxed term.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for them because obviously it's a kind of, a media idea.
Construct, yeah.
Exactly. I don't think they've ever intentionally set out. But Richard's right. I mean, there was a great picture I saw of kind of almost, there's one from the front, all four of them looking at the camera, and then one from the back as they were looking at the red arrows going ahead. And it, you know, the palace never do anything by chance. It's clearly very symbolic that, you know, this is the future of the royal family moving forward.
And as for you, they read the papers as well. Then again,
Yeah.
I think they probably quite like the idea of a Fab Four, right?
Yeah.
Now, Rebecca, there was also a development in Harry's series of court cases. I've lost count of how many court cases there are, but in particular, claims concerning his brother.
So there are 3 cases that Harry is pursuing with the High Court against British media organisations. This is the second of those cases involving the Sun newspaper, which he's accusing of illegal intelligence gathering. He's claimed as part of this case that there was a supposed secret agreement between Buckingham Palace that the Queen was aware of and the publishers of the Sun not to have this case go to court. The newspaper argues that this is a complete flight of fantasy. They described it as an Alice in Wonderland scenario, and it's now up to judge to decide whether this specific claim that Harry's making can be included in a court case next year. And
do we think, does anyone have any educated guess on how that's going to go?
I mean, I've no idea. It's up to us. In a British court, it's up to a single judge to make that decision. So it's up to him.
Well, Richard, and now to a story that you wrote in your column this week about Harry's perhaps surprising absence from a big event.
Yeah, this was interesting. It was the wedding of one of Harry's best friends. It's Jack Mann. He graduated at Sandhurst Military Academy at the same time. They were commissioned into the Blues and Royals together. And Jack Mann's played a sort of key role in Harry's life. He was at the wedding. During the Netflix series, we saw some photos, private photos from the wedding, and one of them was this sort of band of brothers type picture where, you know, Jack was with Harry and his other close friends. So there really was some surprise that Harry and Meghan weren't at this wedding when Jack Mann got married to Isabella Clarke in Suffolk last weekend.
Rebecca, it would seem to some people, I suppose, will speculate. We know that there's an estrangement from his family, but that seems to have trickled down into the wider circle of friends as well.
100%, and from what I hear, there are a lot of people who are genuinely disgusted by what he's done since leaving the royal family. They feel very hurt by some of the revelations that he's made. I mean, William and Harry, as they're growing up, they created a very close-knit circle of friends around each other. There was almost kind of a martyr between them that, you know, we just don't talk about them. And I think contrary to a lot of Harry's claims in recent years, actually that martyr pretty much stuck. It was only when Harry started kind of breaking out of that group and going, you know, to nightclubs in London and you know, other stories about his antics would start leaking out. So there are people who said we've been very loyal to him over the years and we don't feel that loyalty has been repaid, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that we don't know if Jack Mann's, you know, become estranged from Harry or not, but in Harry's memoirs, you know, at the end he talks about how he was chastised, in his words, after the Oprah interview by some of his closest friends, including one of the Van Cutsem brothers, who he really grew up with, and Tiggy, his old nanny. You know, he talks about how he'd fallen out with close friends. So, you know, he's done a lot of damage to those old relationships. And at this wedding, there were other mutual friends of William and Harry, like Thomas Van Strabenzie. So it does seem to be quite a sad situation, really.
I mean, it is possible, isn't it, that he was invited, although I can't help thinking of the bride and thinking, if Harry comes to my wedding, then the wedding's all about Harry.
I mean, that's sort of true to an extent, but we know a bit about what Harry and Meghan have been up to, because there were images of them, sort of paparazzi pictures of them going out at the weekend. I think it was last Friday, and then we've seen them again at a 4th of July parade in Montecito as well. So they didn't seem to have any kind of big commitments that we know about.
Yeah, I mean, they could have had something on we don't know about, but I think as the royal family have found out that anything they're invited to becomes so much about them and the dynamics between them and other members of the royal family that it's, quite frankly, not worth the hassle.
Yeah. Now, Rebecca, let's move on to a report from your colleague on the Mail on Sunday. Kate Middleton this week revealed that despite the palace offering diversity training, it wasn't clear how many of the actual royal family, if any, had done the course.
Yeah, so if you remember, viewers who watched the programme last week, we were discussing the annual review, which is how much the royal family get and how they spend it. But there's all sorts of other stuff in there, hirings, firings, electricity bills. And one of the things that emerged was that the royal family hadn't hit the diversity target for their own household that they wanted to meet, which was 10%. They've remained static for 2 years at 9.7, and we asked in that, what they were doing to make the household a more attractive place to work from people from ethnic minorities, and we were told there's been a lot of training put up online and in person, and it was asked, have any members of the royal family taken part in this diversity? And it was a bit of a kind of deafening silence, a bit of, well, we don't know. And I suspect if they did know and they had, they would be very keen to tell us.
Possibly. I mean, Richard, this will give ammunition to Sussex supporters, won't it?
Oh, come on, you don't need much to give ammunition to cheerleaders for Harry and Meghan.
You old cynic.
I mean, personally, it seems it shows the royal family in a good light if they refuse to go to this sort of politically correct stuff, in my opinion. I mean, diversity training is often, I think it's something which is unhelpful, and it just pits people against each other. I don't think it's a positive move at all. So, frankly, if they've shunned it, it shows how sensible they are.
Well, let's see what commenters say later on about that. But more on Catherine and more on the Sussexes coming up. Before that, a quick look at some of your comments. Wendy King wrote in about Prince William's homelessness initiative, and she said that it blends both his parents' personal lives' work. The ecology and homelessness are what drives him. Elle Alexander agrees with Richard about the royal train, which she loves as well. She says it doesn't have to be all that fancy, and apparently it isn't, and highlights the ease of travel. And Susan Van Skyver, who I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, Susan, praised Sarah Ferguson, who we discussed in last week's programme. Check back if you missed that. She says Fergie is a unique and very strong woman, and I admire the way she's been able to reinvent herself so many times. I wish her well. Yep, indeed, we all wish her well. Please keep those comments coming. We love them. We need them, don't we? We want the validation. Now, Richard, I want to turn now to a fascinating update to Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers. In it, he quotes a royal source who revealed that it was Catherine who pushed for a firm statement after Harry and Meghan's Oprah interview.
Yes, this is a really interesting new insight into that. So you remember what happened in that interview with Oprah Winfrey were these, outrageous allegations, really, very controversial, about racism in the royal family, with Harry and Meghan not naming. They were just sort of throwing mud out there and seeing where it landed. And, there were great calls for, response from the palace. What Valentine Lowe reports in the paperback edition of his book is that Catherine played a key role in wanting it to be sort of toughened up, really. How that statement, it took a few days to come out, and her role in that, it's a new insight, and I think shows quite, fascinating side of her character.
Indeed. Rebecca, there was an interesting line which said about Catherine that, quote, she does not get as much credit as she should because she is so subtle about it. Is that your understanding? That actually sounds quite Machiavellian to me.
I wouldn't say it's Machiavellian, but about 18 months ago when the Princess was turning 40, I spent several months researching a big series on her for the Daily Mail. And one of the lines I had in it was that she's very much seen by those in and around the household as being very much like the Queen Mother, the late Queen Mother, who was described as a steel marshmallow, i.e. an iron fist in a velvet glove. And I think she comes from that school of there's more than one way to skin a cat. You don't have to shout, you don't have to scream, you don't have to flounce off. But if you've got something you believe that you should stand your ground on, you should stand your ground on it. And Val makes the point in his book, and from what I hear, I do think this is accurate, is that she felt history will judge them as a family on what their response would be to this really shocking interview and the allegations that were in it. So she didn't want to get bogged down in things like bridesmaids' dresses and those sorts of things. But this was a really serious issue that they were going to be judged on as a family. So, I think there's a lot of people who would probably look at her with a new sense of respect, I think, as a result of it.
I have never heard the phrase steel marshmallow before.
you not?
I love that.
Have you not?
I never have. I've heard velvet glove, but not steel marshmallow.
I wonder if
I'm
you're a
adopting
bit of a steel marshmallow, Joe.
Just a pure marshmallow, pure.
Terrible for your teeth.
There was another nice detail, wasn't there, Richard, about why that particular statement was delayed?
Yeah, I think this was a great reflection on the character of Queen Elizabeth, who, look, in this day and age, everything has to be quick, doesn't it? People want a response now. They want, and we've seen the negative side of that, I think, in the reaction to those comments about Lady Susan Hussey. Remember that row? And that was something I think the palace reacted far too quickly. But in the case of the Oprah interview, I think Queen Elizabeth said, look, I want to watch this interview first. She waited, because it was broadcast in America earlier. In Britain, we waited till the next day. She wanted to sit down, watch it calmly, and then think what to do. So, yes, it was a few days, but, no one's going to hurry the Queen.
Yeah.
And I think that's was frustrating for us journalists who always want that immediate reaction, but actually it was the sensible thing to do.
Yeah. I have to say that brings back massive memories for me. I remember it being lockdown and the COVID crisis, and I'd been up all night watching it in the US, and me, like other journalists, were straight on the phone to the palace the next day. You've got to say something about this, because it was allegation after allegation after allegation, and it was very frustrating to get no comment. We're going to, if we say anything, and they weren't even convinced at that point they would even react to it, we will do it in our own good time. Clearly it's because the Queen wanted to watch it herself and not get special treatment, not say, can I see the rushes from America? She wanted to watch it, sit down and watch it like every other British citizen did on that Monday night when it was, screened in the UK controversially on ITV. I think fair play on her. She said, let's see it and let's think about it and think long and hard about if we want to say anything, and if we do, what we say. And when that... I remember the atmosphere in the newsroom when that statement dropped, because I kind of got wind that something might be coming.
The recollections may vary.
Seeing that drop on my phone, and it was short, but it was pithy, and it made the point very, very clearly. I remember running over to the news desk going, my God, this is masterful, absolutely masterful. It was one of those real key journalistic moments you remember.
And we have remembered. There's no recollections have varied on this.
well, and it's something like that stands the test of time. It shows you how indeed masterful it was.
Well, let's go back to Catherine for a minute now. And Rebecca, she's been at Wimbledon this week.
She has, looking lovely in Balmain, I think. Have I pronounced that right?
I think so. I loved that jacket. Pistachio, I think we'd call that green, wouldn't we?
Yeah, well, she obviously likes to wear something that ties in with the kind of Wimbledon colours of green. And maybe that's what we were doing.
Is this your inspiration today?
Subliminally, not realising.
Yeah, we thought we were making an independent decision.
Well, can I just say, for the record, Richard, that we don't actually talk about... We never know what we're going to wear until we turn up. No. So... we're obviously just in cycle here, in sync. But she did, and she... but interestingly, she wasn't the biggest drawer in the royal box, because, of course, it was, tennis royalty, Roger Federer, and she was very happy to stand back and take a back seat to him and clap and applaud. And it's just that Hardy angle in the character, in the royal calendar. I haven't heard if she's going again, but I suspect we will see her again over the next 2 weeks.
The club must be absolutely loving the association with her, Richard.
I'm sure they are. They always enjoyed having that royal connection. With the Duke of Kent and the Duchess of Kent would come, and there were very memorable occasions with the Duchess of Kent. But I think to have Princess of Wales, look, Wimbledon doesn't particularly need extra attention. It's a big sporting event for us, big part of the season. But yeah, she gives it that added touch, and it makes... God, all those famous names are desperate to be in the royal box, aren't they? They really are.
Have you ever been in the royal box, either of you?
I think we need to be, editor of a newspaper or something
Yeah.
before we get invited.
You've still got time, Richard. And I think what's great about Kate's involvement with Wimbledon is we know she's a tennis fanatic herself. I mean, there were those great pictures where the other day with Federer, wasn't it? With them, they were with the ball boys and ball girls, and that incredibly muscular physique she had, and whacking the tennis balls across the net. So it's really nice to see someone who's got such a passion for the sport as well.
And at least it doesn't seem to cause any controversy. You might remember when Meghan went to Wimbledon, and then it's not clear exactly what happened, but she was surrounded by all these empty seats, and someone got told off for taking photographs when in fact he was just trying to take a selfie of him with a tennis court behind him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was awkward, wasn't it?
I love Wimbledon, absolutely love it. And on the subject of Wimbledon and the Princess of Wales, it is montage time. And here are some of our favourite images of Catherine at the All England Club. Princess of Wales then, if she does turn up to Wimbledon, we will of course be sure to show you and talk about it a lot more. But for now, my thanks to Rebecca and Richard and to you for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.